Good evening and welcome to Transistance. My name is Genevieve Bergman and I'm one of your hosts. And tonight we're going to be talking about news and items of interest from around the world that impact the transgender, non-binary, non-conforming, and intersex community, as well as the wider two-spirit LGBTQIAP+ community. We try to get as many positive stories in as possible, but we also do deal with some of the harsh realities that are happening around the world. So if you do find yourself with maybe some difficulties and things that are happening, just realize that we are going to do the best we can to present the news as is, but sometimes our commentary does get a little colorful. So without further ado, I do want to introduce my co-host.
Hi, I'm Marla. My hair's up.
Is your hair a co-host? I mean,
my hair is 90% of my personality. So if it took on an actual conscious form, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, I'll tell you what, everybody loves your hair. And I think your personality is very much independent of your hair. So
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So we're going to get started. Emily, are you coming in or not? Okay, Emily's not coming in. So it is just going to be the two of us tonight. And we want to bring up our first set of news, which really is just a collection of news stories about some election chicanery that is happening right now. There are a lot of different elections that are happening around the country right now. And as we go from state to state and we look at all the various elections at different levels of the political spectrum, we're going to go first to Nevada. And in Nevada, there is a school board candidate, John Carlo, and he is running for the school board there in Clark County, which is where Las Vegas is. And John Carlo has a problem with one of the books that is in the libraries of that area. It's a book called King and King, and it's about two young male royals who fall in love with each other. Now, of course, Mr. Carlo does not feel like this book should be in schools or libraries where children would have access to it. And in professing his great disdain with this type of material, this is how he justifies why it should be removed. Mr. Carlo says, I believe the Constitution. I believe in the way our founding fathers believed in this country: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That means that homosexuals cannot procreate. This goes against our Constitution, and this goes against what parents want in the school district, and this is only one book out of thousands. So we have a representative for the school board running, an individual who wants to be in the deciding voice of what happens within the Clark County School District, who believes that because homosexuals cannot procreate, that is in the Constitution and therefore should not be allowed. I'm going to go ahead and hit the other two. And Marla, oh, you want to jump in on this? Okay.
I have a biology question. If I started having intimate relations with a cis woman, doesn't his entire point go out the window? Assuming my swimmers are still working.
Well,
he doesn't see me as a woman, is what you're going to say?
Well, actually, I mean, the thing is that it's very impossible to be able to separate where homosexuals end and transgender people begin, because an individual like this can't tell the difference. But I was told today that
you still have swimmers.
No, doesn't matter. That channel got re-diverted. But I was told today that you can tell the sexuality of somebody by listening to their voice. Because gay people talk in a whiny voice.
Well, I do. And that's the end of the facts. This whole sentence just made no sense.
Right, yeah.
Also, are we going to get rid of every Disney prince and princess? Where's that energy?
I don't know yet. I don't know yet, because the Disney side of this is coming out later, as we deal with Disney moving forward. But I'm going to switch over to Alabama.
No one ever wants to switch over to Alabama.
Right, I know. But over in Alabama, a candidate for governor. Okay, well, we'll be all right. I can talk through this. Republican candidate Tim James paid to air a campaign ad and attacks transgender rights by discussing Leah Thomas, the University of Pennsylvania swimmer, and talking about Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson refusing to define the word woman. But as the ad continues, there is a projection of students at the Magic City Acceptance Academy in Birmingham, and there is a drag fundraiser being portrayed in the ad. Now, this is an LGBTQ affirming learning environment, and it is designed for students who have dropped out of and who are not thriving in traditional schools. Tim James supported this, paid for this campaign ad, and the ad showed pictures of students' faces. That in in itself is horrible.
Protect the children.
But what happened as a result of that ad was that those kids were then targeted with bullying at the school.
Protect the children.
Someone drove by the school and shouted slurs. A woman tried to enter the school to film students, but was luckily stopped by the school staff. So we have a governor candidate who violated the privacy of minors, created a hostile environment that was a safe environment for LGBTQ people, students, and justified it. Justified it by saying that they were fighting for removing this foolishness. You want to take that one, Marla?
We had to protect the children.
Okay. The third is conservative pundit Charlie Kirk, who has
literally just made a TikTok about this. I'm dropping it tomorrow.
who has his own show, and Charlie has a new economic theory that he wants to run by the U.S. He says it is not supply chain issues caused by the pandemic, as economists have very much been able to track and show. No, Mr. Kirk says that transgender people have caused the inflation we are experiencing in the US. He explains on his show that there's a lawmaker and a designer, and being Christians, we believe those laws were made to be followed for our flourishing and our prosperity. Outside of the religious component of this, there are laws of economics. He goes on to explain that we don't get to determine our own reality, and for that reason, he both opposes transgender equality and connects it to inflation. So there's a direct connection to inflation and the trans issue, he said. You say, quote, Charlie, come on, they couldn't be further apart, unquote. Now, this is where it gets interesting. They are the same in this aspect. When you believe that men can become women, why wouldn't you also believe that you could print wealth? If you believe that someone can change their gender, why wouldn't you also believe that money is wealth? Now, there are very simple laws of economics, just like there's laws of nature. There's laws of physics, laws of thermodynamics, laws of biology. So, he takes the idea of living as one's true, authentic self and equates it to printing money to increase the supply of money, thereby breaking the law of economics as we, transgender people, break the laws of biology. So the punishment is that as we break the law of biology, we experience inflation in the US.
I have so many things to say. First of all, if there's transgender people, encourage the goddamn economy, because being transgender is fucking expensive. That's
Yes, it
number
is.
one. Number two, He called the laws of economics simple.
Right, yeah.
How
As
many
well as
times do I
biology.
need to? How many times do I need to be told there's going to be a bust or a boom, and it doesn't fucking happen like every other fucking week?
Right.
Number 3, we're missing. This article misses what he says next because I just did a whole thing on this. He talks about the laws of biology and thermodynamics and physics, and then goes on to say, and there's also, we believe in a lawmaker. We as Christians believe in godly law and you know getting rewarded and prospering and da 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 da. Charlie, if you can believe in an omnipotent sky daddy, can't you believe that you can just print wealth? Charlie Kirk, if you can believe that Donald Trump won the 2020 presidential election, can't you just believe that you can just print wealth? And if this man is so, everyone's just getting a taste of my TikTok for tomorrow morning. And if this man is so concerned, like, first of all, the printing of money is not actually some huge effect on inflation, not the way we do it and the careful way in which we do it. But if he's so concerned about us printing money that is not tied to anything tangible, maybe he should go talk to Richard Nixon, who took us off the fucking gold standard.
Yeah, economics is not something that it's not something that can in and of itself be comprehended easily.
No. Even how many years later, even 90 years later, we're still looking at the Great how many years? Where am I? Great Depression was, someone give me a year.
Years ago.
Yeah, 89 years. Even looking back at the Great Depression, we still don't exactly know. We can't like pin down exactly what occurred.
Right. So we can't do economics to guarantee that we know what the trends are going to be in up and down markets. We cannot know where inflation is going to land. We don't know we don't even know where the price of oil is, which should be the most easily understood concept of supply and demand. And yet, there's no easy formula for the price of oil and its impact on gas. But when you go to take the experience, which, by the way, is not biological, it is psychological, and there are no laws of psychology. But when you take something that is psychological, consider it to be a biological law, and then say that impacts economics on a global scale, please remember, we are not an insulated economy. We are a part of the global economy. So when we talk about what's happening within the world, then we are talking about how that impacts the United States economic standing as well as the rest of the world. So it's great to know that all of these, okay, let's back this up for just a second.
Okay.
Stop and think about how much money is being put into the anti-transgender legislation. That in and of itself is floating a portion of the economy. The problem is that it is not floating a taxable portion of the economy. Because the money that is going in to support all of that legislation is being funneled into religious nonprofit organizations, namely the church. And then that money is then funneled from the church to political action groups and think tanks, where those bills and their templates are being generated, and where those representatives and senators are being trained in how to best defend these bills. All that money that is being used to generate this legislation is being generated with no benefit to the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. Something else to bring up. Blaming economic troubles on a small marginalized group, very American. Blaming inflation on a small marginalized group, very German.
Yes, it is. If you turn back the clock to 1936, you would hear members of the National Socialist Party talking about how those of the Jewish race were draining on the economy of Germany, that they were in part why, or in major part why, the German economy was collapsing, even though it was the post World War I impact of the Treaty of Versailles that destroyed the German economy. But they used the Jewish people as a scapegoat.
Yep.
And now we see the exact same language being used, granted, in a much less cogent way, to talk about transgender people.
Mm-hmm.
But we have here a school board member who does not know what's in the Constitution.
I mean, most of them don't.
We have a political pundit who is using his platform to create an intense amount of very familiar rhetoric that is based completely in ignorance and misunderstanding of the very thing they're talking about. And we have a Republican governor candidate who is risking the health and safety and well-being of LGBTQ kids in the state for which he is running for governor. This is election bullshit. This is using the idea of fear-mongering to create an attitude of saying, I am a savior here to protect you from the evil transgender ideology that is being spread in the world. We have a responsibility to stop that. We have a responsibility to speak out against that, and that's what this show is trying to do. We're trying to let you know what's being said out there, but at the same time, we have to get this message out further. Marla does what she does on TikTok. We do what we do here on the Transverse, but we need your help also. We need you to be able to share this information. Take this information. This show will be ready to be shared almost immediately after we are done. All you have to do is share the link. All you have to do is point people to the address and they can come hear this information. So please consider that. When you are going around in all of the places on the internet that you like to go and people are worried about what's happening in the world, please share this program because we are doing our best to get this message out. All right, moving right along to the next story, something that we were expecting. We'd reported last week that the governor of Kentucky had vetoed the anti-trans sports bill, but the legislature has come back and overridden the veto. So Kentucky is now going to be legally banning transgender girls from participating in school sports starting in the 6th grade. Here is the impact of that bill that now becomes a law. There is one transgender girl who will be impacted by this. There's one transgender girl playing in field hockey, and she will be forced to stop playing that. You see, the governor pointed out in the veto statement, or the statement after the veto, that the Kentucky High School Athletic Association had already had participation guidelines for transgender athletes. That one student playing field hockey, had followed the Athletic Association guidelines, was fully qualified to play in the sports by the Athletic Association of Kentucky. But now the entirety of this this legislation has been pushed through, worked over, and we have one transgender girl who is now impacted. In the whole state of Kentucky, that is the only transgender student who will be impacted by this.
Do you recall when we first discussed this happening in, I think, Utah, that I said, I wonder if this veto was planned for some reason to make someone look good? And I think you disagreed with me. I'm gonna have to disagree with you. This has happened too many times. This seems very planned.
Is that all you got, Marlon?
Yeah.
Okay. Wait.
No, I mean, I think me and Emily said it last week. It seems the governor is a single person, an entity.
Mm-hmm.
The Congress is a body.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they can't be like, governor wanted pass this law just to attack one single poor trans girl.
Right.
It's a lot harder to apply that message to an entire governing body, even if they voted for
it. Okay.
Because they can't say that they are, you say it about a certain congressman, it's like, well, they're not completely responsible for it.
Right. But okay, so let's go back to the idea of reductionist rhetoric.
Uh-huh.
The idea of taking and bringing the whole entire concept of legislative process and law down to one person.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one that this is the fight that I used to have with my wife, who was the manager of the school cafeteria, and with my son, who only listened to the rhetoric of the internet.
Okay.
When Michelle Obama began her campaign to create healthier school meals, the entire argument was that Michelle Obama changed school lunches so that kids were not getting enough food.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, Michelle Obama had no authority to do that. She has no ability to impact what a school district does, because school policies, while governed at the local level, also pass through the state level.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the states who impacted school lunches. But Michelle Obama was reduced to the single point of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
The president does not make law.
Mm-hmm.
It is the job of Congress to be able to produce law, vote on that law, and then have it in the place where the president can approve that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same thing that happens at the state level.
Yes, but I think you're proving my point in that we still blame the single individual. The single individual at the top is who gets the blame, or whose choices we look at, rather than the legislative body. So to me, it feels like Republicans have been like, well, we don't want the governor to get blamed for attacking a single student. So we are going to allow him to veto, fully knowing that we're going to override the veto.
So, so you're okay. This is what I'm hearing you say, Marla, and this is where I think this is. This is where we disagree.
Okay.
What I'm hearing you say is that there is a concentrated arrangement between the legislative and the executive branch, and the legislative and the executive branch works it out so that the governor, the executive branch gets to come out looking like the hero, and the legislative branch gets to come out looking like the hero because they overrode the hero.
Well, it depends upon what message is being sent and who's sending the message.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying the issue at hand, the thing that we're talking about right here,
Yeah.
and what I'm hearing is that if they work that out, then the governor gets to be the hero by protecting transgender kids, but then the legislative branch gets to be the hero for overriding the governor, who was the hero.
Hold on. I figured this out. Give me 1 second to work it out in my brain. But if the legislation passed, right? If it's now in law,
Right.
the only criticism that's going to be waged, and criticism is a lot more prevalent than celebration, right?
Right.
In politics. The only criticism that's going to be waged by anyone is this single trans girl was targeted. That's going to be the only message out there.
No, it's not. Okay. You're looking at the impact. All right?
Uh-huh.
These people don't care about the impact. That's
Yeah.
one thing that they have shown us. They do not care about the impact because they will say, we are here to protect children. We are here to protect parental rights. We are here to protect the Constitution. We are here to protect all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care about the impact because, as we have pointed out, they will use their rhetoric to put children in harm's way. They will use their rhetoric to remove the rights of parents. They will use their rhetoric to define the Constitution based upon their one-sided, narrow-minded belief systems.
Here's what I'm going to ask you. When it comes, I know this is not two different bodies, but when it comes to the U.S. Senate, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you have these votes, especially during the Trump era, where it went 50-50 and then Pence broke it.
Right.
Because you had those specific senators, Collins, Mitt Romney, a couple others, that could play this maverick card, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were only allowed to make those votes when the Republicans still got the legislature they wanted. If their votes would have overturned the Republicans, they would not have been allowed those votes. They were given hall passes to do that. And that's what this feels like to me.
Okay. That may be the case at the federal level. That may be the case at that level. At the state level, though, it is much more impactful when a party representative who is in a place of prominence, such as the governor, goes against the party's platform. There are repercussions to their political clout. There are repercussions to whether or not the party will continue to support and endorse them. And so when a governor goes to the effort and says, I'm not going to do this, that governor is risking clout, especially the backing of the party of the state. And
okay, let me ask you this. Do you believe, we're wasting so much time on this, do you believe that any of these governors would have said no, they would have vetoed if the Congress did not have a overriding majority already?
So you mean it's a no risk proposition for them?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like we have to have this discussion elsewhere. We've wasted 20 minutes.
We have definitely wasted a lot of minutes on this stuff.
I don't have the chat pulled up, but I'm interested to know what's happening.
They're ignoring us.
They're just talking about what they're having for dinner.
Jeez, they're on a rant. All right, hopping back over to Tennessee. Tennessee has been working to get a bill passed where marriage will be given an alternate route of process to make it possible to have only male. Rosa? Now, damn it. I don't ignore you. But Tennessee was working to create a process where male and female only marriages could be performed. Now, because of current federal restrictions, you cannot prohibit same-sex marriage at the state level. You can't do it. But Tennessee thought, let's go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and create an alternate passage for people to be able to get married and make sure that it was only male-female couples.
Well, so the initial not real marriage?
Huh?
So it's not real marriage?
It's common marriage. Common law marriage.
I just was thinking, I don't even want to say it. Well, what we're getting is cis marriage, but I don't want you to call it cis marriage. It's real marriage. You're getting trans marriage.
Oh, no. Well, the problem with the bill is that the initial version of it, when it was first being brought to consideration, is that there was no minimum age established within this new path of marriage. So now, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, common sense this, common sense that. No, you see, in states that already have the legal path for marriage recognized, and you have to have a legal path because marriages are a civil arrangement. They are a state recognized arrangement. In states, you have to have certain rules and standards that are established so that that marriage will be legal and standing in the government's eyes. That included a minimum age. When this new bill was being brought forward that was establishing a new path for marriage to be recognized in the state of Tennessee, there was no minimum age written in. And then there was a lengthy debate over whether or not this was actually a pathway to allow for child brides and allow for marrying people under a certain age that would normally not be allowed within the rest of the United States.
Turning Tennessee into the grooming and child trafficking center of the world.
Well, I'm not going to use that word because it's being overused in a very gross and horrible way. So if you want to go there, I just want to say that the opinions of the hosts of the show Transistance do not reflect the viewpoints and the attitudes of the Transverse Network.
I'm going to keep calling cishet people groomers. Did you see that video of that kid in the bar?
I did see the video. Oh my God.
And they're all, yay, good for him. Like, and then they'll turn around and be like, God had those don't say gay laws.
Okay, so if you've not seen the video that Marla is referencing, it is a video from LAD Bible. And it shows a child, probably 7.
Yeah, I'd say.
At the bar.
In like, this is like a nightclub setting. This is
Right.
like a dancey, dim lights, smoke.
Blues and pinks and everything else. Full stock bar. There's a 7-year-old who the top of his head barely clears the bar. Standing up there, the bartender, a relatively young female, is pouring shots of orange juice to share with this 7-year-old. So she teaches him how to do shots. Now, it is just orange juice. But he takes the shot and he puts the glass back down on the bar. Then he's moving to walk away. The bartender motions for him to come back, and she puts her cheek down and wants him to give her presumably a kiss. When he walks up to the bar, she's doing this. He grabs her by the cheek, turns her face on, and kisses her on the lips. Now, I know that in the state of Oklahoma, there is a law that says no one under the age of 21 is allowed within a certain distance of the bar within an establishment that is a restaurant and bar. There are partitions that are designed to say no children under 21 or nobody under 21 is allowed in that space. This is an establishment, as Marla said, that is clearly, I mean, from what we know of it, an adult entertainment venue, such as a dance club, a nightclub, something like that. How the child got into the bar, I don't know. How the child got to the bar, I don't know. But that the child was given the ability to mimic taking a shot, then was invited to give a kiss, but then turned that into sexual harassment, if not battery. Y'all, that is...
And then the comment section full of cishet people being like, that kid's a, what a baller, what a player, what a stud, what a
yeah.
Like, what world am I living in?
Yeah, I know. And so we have this happening at the same time as Tennessee is trying to introduce a bill that says Well, we don't need a minimum age because it's common sense that somebody is old enough to get married. We don't have to legislate it because people have common sense. Luckily, the bill is dead for the rest of this session, meaning that through 2022, the bill is not going anywhere.
Can someone explain how? I know legislatures are lazy, but it's April. How are they done?
Well, the bill is going into study. Okay, means that it in and of itself it has to go back through committees. It has to be examined by committees. Then it has to process through, because any revisions would then have to be passed, and so it's a process that they know that they can't accomplish within 7 months. So the bill is effectively dead for the rest of 2022.
I still don't. I just. Can I work just the first 4 months of the year and be done?
Last year,
can I spend 4 months writing laws against people I hate and then be done?
Well, I mean, sure. Marla and I are now throwing our names in for consideration for election to our own state's, election boards, so that we can run for office, so that we can spend 4 months writing bills against people we don't like.
I will be the Marjorie Taylor Greene of the left, but without the lies.
Emily, I would like to humbly request no endorsements from the Transverse, please.
Call me Marla Taylor Greene.
Okay. That's true. All right, up to Maryland. All of the states that have been working to pass all of the anti-trans legislation, and as of this point in 2022, there have been over 240 different pieces of legislation introduced to be fought over that in some way carry an anti-transgender tone to them. In Maryland, things are a little bit different. HB 850 has been passed by a margin of 96 to 36.
Big margin.
The legislation is now heading to the desk of Republican Governor Larry Hogan. He has 30 days to sign or veto. But if no action is taken, the bill will go into effect on July 1st. Now, why this is important is that this bill will provide LGBTQ students a little bit of protection. The bill is designed to, let's just read it. The bill prohibits a local board of education, a public kindergarten program, and primary and secondary schools and non-public pre-kindergarten programs in primary and secondary schools that receive state funds from refusing enrollment of a prospective student, expelling a current student, withholding privileges from, or otherwise discriminating against any individual because of an individual's race, ethnicity, color, religion, sex, age, national origin, marital status, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability. Further, the bill prohibits retaliatory actions against a student or parent or guardian of a student who files a complaint alleging specified discrimination. The bill establishes a complaint mediation, and appeal process for violations. In essence, the bill is a protection for all students to be able to go to school without fear that they're going to face discrimination from the school for who they are. So Maryland is taking one step forward to protect their LGBTQ students. And so we want to give a huge thank you to the state of Maryland.
I don't have anything to say on that. I only know how to discuss negative things.
So, Marla, you don't want to argue that the governor may make that.
I don't have time tonight. We're going to have a long discussion about this at some point this week.
Oh, you coward.
But like in the past 20 years, I feel like one of the few votes that was made without everyone else in that party knowing that vote was gonna be made is maybe when John McCain gave the thumbs down. That's the only one. I think every vote is planned out, and that's not some conspiracy. That definitely happens.
Right. Okay, hopping up to Missouri. Missouri is already working on a new initiative to basically put this before the people. Missouri already has policies allowing transgender girls to play on sports teams. But a last-minute amendment into a voter identification bill now states that Republicans could allow school districts to call elections on whether to ban trans athletes from public school sports. So, because they can't necessarily get a clear unconstitutional law pushed, what they are going to do is put it back in the hands of the voters of
There's
Missouri.
another word for that. It's called passing the buck.
Well, yeah. But it will basically put each individual school district as the point of responsibility of whether or not they will ban a transgender student within their own school district. So the voters would go to the election booths and they would decide that within their school district whether or not transgender students would be allowed to participate in identified sex sports. Now, this is something that kind of has sparked a lot of issue because there was a large, debate on the package, but during the debate, State Representative Chuck Basie added an amendment that would allow these school districts to hold these elections, asking the voters if trans athletes with male on their birth certificates should be allowed to play on girls' sports teams. Well, friends, we are now seeing a representative speaking the quiet words out loud that this is significantly biased against transgender girls. But Basie goes on to say, I'm very, very confident that there are people in this state, children, parents, and other citizens that feel like they don't have a voice in this because they are afraid to speak out. I want to let them know that I'm speaking for them and I'm proud to speak for them. Barbara Pfeiffer, who is a Democratic representative, came back and said, how are you going to do this? Are we going to make children strip? We are not going to do that in the state of Missouri. You'll do it over my dead body. Now that's Representative Barbara Pfeiffer. Yes, Marla. What would you like to bring for the class?
Literally do that? Didn't Florida literally demand genital checks?
Yeah. Yeah.
Protect the children.
Once again, we don't get to be people. So that doesn't count. Um. Oh man, I almost went in a very, very bad place, and I shouldn't have. So I'm going to move right along with this. Um, the amendment was approved 89-40, but it could eventually get in the way of further progress. So um, we'll have to just wait and see what's going to happen to that. But there is something that happened on the floor of while this was happening. There was, huh?
Yep, I just remembered. Go on.
Yeah. So as this debate was happening over these amendments, State Representative Ian Mackey, a Democrat who happens to be gay, stood up and spoke to Representative Chuck Basie, the one who brought the amendment. And I want to read what Representative Mackey said. Your brother wanted to tell you he was gay, didn't he? But your brother thought that you would hold that against him and not let your children be around him. Mackey goes on to say, can I tell you, if I were your brother, I would have been afraid to tell you too. I would have been afraid to tell you too because of stuff like this, because this is what you're focused on. This is the legislation you want to put forward. This is what consumes your time. Now, I hope I can do this right.
Do you remember your remarks on the floor last year when you brought this up?
You'd have to give me a specific. I mean, I made a lot of remarks last year.
So I recall a story you told about your brother.
Okay.
And I remember you said that your brother called, or that your mother called you, I believe, to tell you that your brother had some news that he was afraid to tell you.
Okay.
And your brother wanted to tell you that he was gay, didn't he?
He was expressing that to the family, and he thought that that we would hold that against him and not let my children be around him.
Why do you think he thought that?
I don't know. It never would have happened. I'll tell you that. My kids at that point in their life adored my brother.
Can I tell you, if I were your brother, I would have been afraid to tell you too.
Well,
I would have been afraid to tell you too because of stuff like this. Because this is what you're focused on. This is the legislation you want to put forward. This is what consumes your time. I would have been afraid to tell you too. I was afraid of people like you growing up, and I grew up in Hickory County, Missouri. I grew up in a school district that would vote tomorrow to put this in place. And for 18 years, I walked around with nice people like you who took me to ball games, who told me how smart I was, and who went to the ballot and voted for crap like this. And I couldn't wait to get out. I couldn't wait to move to a part of our state that would reject this stuff in a minute. I couldn't wait. And thank God I made it. Thank God I made it out. And I think every day of the kids who are still there, who haven't made it out, who haven't escaped from this kind of bigotry. Gentlemen, I'm not afraid of you anymore because you're gonna lose. You may win this today, but you're going to lose. Do you remember your remarks
Once again,
on the floor?
That is Representative Ian Mackey of Missouri speaking directly to Representative Chuck Basie, who introduced the amendment that would essentially put the decision to prohibit transgender girls only, from playing in girl sports in the hands of the local electors.
Governor, U.S. Senator, U.S. Congressperson, He deserves to be somewhere better than that shithole.
I agree. I agree. All right, so over into mine and Marla's favorite playground, which is TikTok. Marla and I are no strangers to having our accounts suspended for the violation of community guidelines.
There's literally an article we're doing at the end that I made a TikTok about before anyone else knew about it. And I went, if I post this, I'm going to lose my account. We'll get to that later.
Okay. So last week, the Human Rights Campaign, which is a huge advocate and fighting team for LGBTQ people, Human Rights Campaign was posting a comment on a video. And in that comment, they had yellow, blue hearts followed by the word gay. TikTok suspended the HRC's account, a civil rights organization account, for using the word gay. Now, usually Marla and I do something to deserve it. Oh, come on, Marla.
Most of my bans are someone else's hate speech that they thought was my hate speech.
Right.
Or when I got the week-long suspension, that was for bullying for a video that was restored because it wasn't bullying.
Right, yeah. Well, now look, now let's be fair though, okay? You published a video. Therefore, you did something to deserve the ban.
Okay.
Okay? So you responded to hate comments to try and protect yourself. Therefore, you did something to deserve the ban. I mean,
Yeah.
I was banned for nudity for not having my wig on and showing my shoulder. See, now I had bare skin, so therefore I was, doing something that got me banned. And then I was trying to get a Christian zealot out of my chat, and I was using very aggressive language to let them know that they were not welcome in there and that their rhetoric was not appreciated, and I got banned for that, for harassment and bullying. So I did something to deserve that. See, we do things to deserve that.
I understand your point. I don't agree with you, but I understand your point.
The HRC was basically just trying to show support. And in the process to that, TikTok locked them out of their account. Not a temporary ban like we've experienced. They suspended the account for 2 days.
No. They suspended the account for a week and then reduced it to 2 days.
After the fuss.
Which, it just tells me that there's no hierarchy at TikTok.
Oh, no.
Like, this is going to, some, minimum wage worker who's like, I don't know what the HRC is. I don't understand any of this. Someone who's completely out of their depth, because if anyone at TikTok who had real stake in the game was making these decisions, that's not the decision that would have been made.
Right. I know. But we do want to recommend that if you are on TikTok, please follow the HRC, the Human Rights Campaign, and please support and try to boost their messages that they put out, because every message that they put out really does come back to support us in the work that we are doing to basically just live with equal rights. So just want to toss that out there. Now, there's been a lot of talk about the military and the impact of transgender people within that. But just this last week, we've gotten some new information from one of the military branches. And I want to give a special thanks to one of my moderators and somebody who is very special to me, Masochist, because she sent me the news on this information so I could begin to understand what was going on. So, as of last week, the United States Air Force is offering assistance to service members and their families who are in states that have anti-LGBTQ laws passing. What the Air Force and the Space Force members could potentially receive is medical and legal resources, in addition to help with relocation if needed. Essentially, what has been clarified in this statement is that if there is a state that has anti-LGBTQ laws in place, and there is an Air Force base or a Space Force installation within that state, and there are service members or their families who are LGBTQ and would be impacted by that law, the Air Force will support those service members and their families in ensuring that they get the medical resources that they need, meaning that any gender affirming care would be overseen by the Air Force. Any legal resources, which in states like Texas could be huge, or there's relocation benefit, which means that that service member and their family would be located to a state where there are no anti-LGBTQ laws. Yes, Autumn, that is exactly what this means. In those states that have anti-LGBTQ laws in place, if there are service members having to be relocated to bases in other parts of the country, then the readiness status of that base within that state, and possibly any other base within that state, would be downgraded, and that base would be considered for closure, because they would not be at operational readiness because of the moving of operational readiness staff. So what this looks like on the state level is you have states that have anti-LGBTQ laws in place. You have service members stationed on bases within those states. The Air Force says, we will relocate you to a safer place so that you and your family can have the care that you need. Now that base is no longer staffed adequately. If that base faces reduction or closure, the financial benefits to that state is in the billions, if not trillions of dollars. When you look at a place like Texas, who has some of the most egregious anti-LGBTQ laws that we've seen, or Florida that has horrible LGBTQ laws, you're talking about seeing Air Force bases moved from those states because they will not allow LGBTQ people to live there safely.
It's a good way to get rid of Fort Hood.
Well, that's not Air Force.
It's not Air Force, you're right. Just realized that. Damn it.
Yeah, but Rosa, here's the thing. The Air Force doesn't see it that way. And that's the catch. The thing is about these bases are one of Air Force bases, military bases in general, in the U.S. are kind of like Rosa, it would be like the only pretty girl in a bar in the outback. Everybody's going to be fighting to get the dance with her. Everybody fights over these bases because they know the revenue that it brings to their state. But the moment that readiness drops, but you see, it's not the LGBTQ people who move the base. It's the Air Force, and the Air Force is there reacting to the state. They can't blame the people because the people have already moved. It will come back on the politicians because the politicians cost them jobs. Because the politician couldn't keep the bases open. It's because the politicians could not swindle or negotiate to keep those bases open. And everybody knows that. This is one of the things that politicians in the U.S. campaign about when they are in military cities. They love to talk about how much they're going to protect that base because they know how much money it brings into that city. It will fall back onto those politicians. Now, you will have politicians who rise up and say, well, it's not our fault, it's the gays' fault. But I can promise you that those who were responsible will lose their position. And the state will lose the money. Okay. See, Rosa, I don't ignore you. Mississippi. A few weeks back, we were reporting on a local library that was under pressure from the mayor in that community.
This had to be at least 2 months ago.
Right, yeah. In January, that's when the news came out. The mayor refused to release $110,000 in approved funding to the library. Well, that led to a grassroots effort. Now, the money was withheld because any LGBT plus affirming literature was required to be removed. The mayor said you have to take any LGBT plus affirming literature, include, LGBT plus materials out of the library. And until that happens, you're not going to get your money. A grassroots effort went and gained all of the money that the library needed to operate, not just for this year, but I think it was a couple years in addition. But here's the catch. That grassroots movement was pushed.
Furries! It was furries! I wanted to say it.
That grassroots push was made around a furry community. And if you remember the news from a couple of weeks ago, there was a representative in one of the northern states, I think it was Wisconsin or Michigan or something like that, that said that the school systems were allowing furries in the school, and they were making concessions for kids who are furries, and that the kids had to have litter boxes instead of going to the restroom. And so anyway, furries began a groundswell of support for this library and were able to get this huge push of donations. Well, in response to that, the mayor relented.
Do you think he was afraid of the news. Like he didn't want it to just be paid by furries. Like, do you think he was just afraid of the news being furries beat mayor, pay for library? Like, did he think by being like, okay, I'll give them money, the story will go away?
Hang on. I gotta deal with this. NASW. Yes, furries are real.
No.
They are an alternative community that does exist. They are very much on the spectrum of kink participation, but they are a legitimate subculture, and yeah, they do promote community good, as they did in this state. So going back to what you were saying, Marla.
Yes.
So NASW says he knew it was illegal for him to do that. And so that's why he changed his mind.
Wait, what?
It would be illegal for him to withhold money that had already been tagged for the
I
library.
thought he was saying it would be illegal for him to be a furry, and I was very confused.
No. Going back to the mayor, he cannot hold on to that money because it had already been approved for the library. It was within the budget to be given to the library. He can't do that. For him to hold that, he would be breaking the charter of the city.
Yeah, but he was already doing it, so what made him flip the switch?
Okay. So you are arguing.
Are we doing? Is this going to be like our last argument?
No, I think you're going to like this one.
Okay.
You are arguing that he wanted to save face in not being basically beat out by a bunch of furries.
Yes.
My argument is somebody was going to out him.
As a furry?
Yeah.
That'd be amazing. Oh, amazing.
I know. And a wolf. I know it's doubtful, but I just wanted to see Marla's face when I threw that out there as a possibility.
What do we think? What do we think the mayor's persona is?
I'm gonna say a French bulldog.
Oh, okay.
Oh lordy. And he would have lost. Masochist says a weasel. So
A weasel. I was kind of thinking that direction too.
Right. Now I threw that story in there because the next story we do have to deal with is a lot more serious than that, and I do want to say
Black's sake.
This is definitely a content and trigger. Have concerns about violence against transgender women, then you definitely want to hold out for this news piece. So there will be notification when we do move on, but I want to give just a few more moments of if anybody feels like they want to step out. Fern Feather was a 29-year-old transgender woman who was living in Vermont, and she was found on a roadside stabbed that resulted in her death. The state police have a suspect and they are investigating, but the suspect, 43-year-old Seth Brunel, was claiming self-defense, saying that Feather had made a sexual advance and attacked him. In essence, Seth Burnell was using the panic defense against Fern Feather to say that she was the aggressor. The investigation from the Vermont State Police found no evidence of a struggle, no evidence of an assault, or any weapons on Ms. Feather. So Brunel has now been charged with second-degree murder and being held without bail. The background of this is that Feather and Brunel met and began spending time together a few days before her death. And police had encountered the two in a car on the morning of her murder. About 2 hours later, a passerby found her bleeding on the roadside, and first responders declared her dead on the scene. So a friend of mine over in TikTok says, is the panic defense even still a thing? Yes, it is.
Is it in Vermont?
I don't know that it is.
You
but
keep talking, I'm going to look it up.
Okay. So Marla is checking into that. But yes, Coco, there are many states that still have panic defense laws on the books. There are states that are trying to remove it right now. But this is a very real issue that we have been talking about ever since Transistance started broadcasting the news. The panic defense is still being used in many places to justify any violence perpetrated on LGBTQ plus people. And because of the environment that we are in right now, we are seeing, oh, really? Luna, you knew her.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. Luna had posted over in the Twitch chat that she had talked to her a few times, and she was a really nice, shy person. She was not the type to make the first move. Because of all of the emphasis upon LGBTQ legislation, we have seen a rise in violence. We have seen a rise in assaults. We've seen a rise in battery, and of course, murders and manslaughters.
Vermont is a no. Vermont it's banned. You can't use the panic there.
All right. So panic defense does not exist in Vermont. But that doesn't preclude it from being used in other places. And we can see a correlation between the rise of so many states using anti-LGBTQ plus legislation and violence. The thing is that in many places, the violence is not in a state where we necessarily see the legislation, which brings us to our next story. So, Emily, if you'd go ahead and change the content warning. We reported that the Rash nightclub in Brooklyn had been set on fire, and this was a club that was gaining prominence as an LGBTQ place. It was definitely, a center for the queer community to come together to have a safe space. John Lotta, 24 years old, has been accused of pouring a canister of gasoline onto the floor of the nightclub and then igniting it. According to prosecutors, based on security videos, Lotta was seen purchasing a red gas container at a service station filling it with gasoline. He then went to the Rash Club where he poured, allegedly, gasoline over the floor of the bar while the staff were finishing up for the night. According to authorities, Lotta then tossed a lit cigarette onto the floor, and when that did not ignite the gasoline, he used a cigarette lighter to ignite the gasoline, causing an explosion and fire.
Have you seen the video? I have no idea how he got away from that.
I have not seen it, but security video does show him running away from the burning nightclub. As I said, there were club employees in there. 2 members were injured. They were treated for burns. But this is definitely part of that violence, that rise in violence that we are seeing against LGBTQ plus people. And U.S. Attorney Breon Peace said, as alleged, Lotta deliberately set fire to a venue patronized by members of the LGBT plus community, seriously injured 2 Rash employees, and endangered all present, including the tenants of the building as well as first responders. This office strongly condemns such acts of violence and will vigorously prosecute this case. The victims and all LGBTQ plus New Yorkers should be able to enjoy their nights out in peace and without fear of such a dangerous attack. The bar was completely destroyed, and it is said that some of the staff were so terrified by what happened that they have secluded themselves away, and they're definitely not feeling safe at this time. But these are the things that we have to be aware of, because this violence New York is not a hotbed of anti-LGBTQ plus legislation. Now, New York has its problems, as everywhere does, but we are not seeing bill after bill after bill being churned out in New York, and especially not in Brooklyn. So this violence is not just located within those states that are targeted with anti-LGBTQ legislation. So please be aware of your surroundings, protect yourself, your interests, your community, and be sure that you are doing all that you can to keep one another safe. I hate to use this because it was started under the era of domestic terrorism, but if you see something, say something. Do not be afraid to look like someone who may be overreacting. This is not the time for pride getting in the way of protection.
Now's a good time to point out, I know we don't have some absurdly large audience, but they are only at 112,000 of the 200,000 they need for the bar on their GoFundMe. Just as an FYI.
And that GoFundMe is now in the chat. So if you are interested in supporting that, and even in some small way, I know that it would be very appreciated.
That got in the chat real fast.
Well, that person named Jeannie V1229 seems to be on the ball. I don't know.
What do you think those numbers stand for?
I don't know. I bet it's some weird transgender numerology secret code thing.
Oh no, I bet she was born in December of 1929.
Good night, everybody. Good night, everybody. I'm out of here. I'm past my bedtime, so now I'm going to go take my brand and enjoy getting my teeth out of my head.
You were there. Can you tell us what happened during the Great Depression? Do you know exactly what occurred financially?
Marla,
Yeah.
fuck you. So yeah, someone is going to be blocked. All right. Everybody's favorite news network, Fox News. And this goes back to the disagreement that I had with Marla using the word grooming earlier. Emily, I was just censored by the producer of this very show, executive producer, to say I may have to block the show I created. You're executive producer because you're the one who makes the big decisions. I'm sorry, I'm waiting for Emily because I can see the response on her face coming through. And hold the
That's a laugh. That's a hearty laugh.
Yes, you do. All right. So Fox News has claimed that New Jersey schools are practicing psychological torture and predatory grooming on first and second graders because one of the school districts not yet used lesson plans on gender identity has been leaked to the conservative rumor mill.
The conservative rumor mill also just happens to be a conservative groomer mill.
The lesson plans included a list of resources for Westfield Public Schools and it encouraged teachers to ask first graders about gender stereotypes and have second graders correctly identify at least 4 body parts of male and female genitals. Now, let me just say that this is just quotes, all right? I've not seen the curriculum. I have not seen what it is within its entirety, but the second grade curriculum also made a statement that could be shared with students. Quote, you might feel like you're a boy even if you have body parts that some people might tell you are girl parts. You might feel like you're a girl even if you have body parts that some people might tell you are boy parts. Now, this was part of the state's revised comprehensive health and physical education curriculum. These were resources. These are not mandated, nor are they required. They are just resources. And I have had people ask me about that on TikTok. They have confronted me and said, hey, what do you know about these New Jersey curriculum things? And I said, I don't know yet. So I had not done the research until this came about. But Fox News has been driving home that this is evidence of the gender ideology and the effort to groom kids. Once again, these are resources within a curriculum that are not required, nor are they mandated to use. It is not an attempt to promote a gender ideology. These were just resources within the curriculum. And to go so far as to say that these were required for use or that these were mandatory is extending beyond the truth of what this curriculum was about. So if you do hear him in any kind of effort by New Jersey to groom kids with the curriculum, this is the reality. In the curriculum, it was a resource for teachers to use in case students wanted to expand.
I just want to bring up, why does Brett Baer, just looking at the picture at the top of this article, why does Brett Baer always look like he needs a massage, like very badly?
All right. I cannot go there. Seriously, I cannot go there, Marla, because anything that I say at that point is going to be enough for Emily to put me in the bandbox. I mean, I'm just telling you, she's going to cut my mic, she's going to cut my camera. Everything will go completely dark on my end, and you're going to have to carry the rest of the show by yourself.
Well, the show's then ending because I can't do that. I have a certain set of skills. That's not it.
Oh. All right. The Loganville Police Department in Georgia has arrested 4 teenagers who are allegedly responsible for spraying a 15-year-old student with liquid cleaning products while hurling homophobic slurs at him. The police department said that 4 teenagers were charged in relation to the attacks on a 15-year-old classmate at the high school. Said that the teens trapped the 9th graders into a bathroom closet for a lengthy amount of time and doused him with liquid cleaning products. They are accused of subjecting the victim to harassment and homophobic comments while he was trapped in the closet. And so the police have confirmed that they are definitely investigating the events which occurred on March 23rd as well as March 31st.
Wait, there's 2 incidents?
Yeah. The police have confirmed they're investigating 2 incidents, March 23rd and March 31st. Police have charged a 17-year-old female. Somebody get that guy out of the comments, please, over on TikTok. Police have charged a 17-year-old female who has been identified as Kelsey Juliana Hayes with 1 felony count of false imprisonment. The other suspects have not been named at this time because one of them is a 16-year-old facing 2 felony counts of false imprisonment, 1 misdemeanor of reckless conduct, and a misdemeanor count of battery. A 14-year-old faces 1 count of false imprisonment and 1 count of reckless conduct. Party to a crime, both of those misdemeanors. Another 14-year-old has been charged with 2 misdemeanor counts of false imprisonment. Party to a crime, and 1 misdemeanor count of reckless conduct, party to a crime. So what we have had is a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old, and 2 14-year-olds assaulting a 15-year-old classmate on 2 separate incidents. We are not, there's nothing more we can say to this. But I can tell you what somebody just said in my comments on TikTok.
Oh, dear God.
So a group of teens were bullying a hippie. It just sounds like the 80s. I think it was something to that effect. Now let's go back to Florida and the Department of Education, who has announced that they are going to ban 71% of elementary school textbooks and 41% of textbooks for all grades because the textbooks contain prohibited content about critical race theory. Now, here's the catch. Of the 71% of elementary school textbooks, they were math textbooks. The Department of Education committee that was responsible for reviewing textbooks reviewed 132 textbooks and rejected 41% of the submissions. Now, the chair or the commissioner of education is a former state senator and has no experience in education, but is definitely a supporter of Ron DeSantis. And they said, we're going to ensure that Florida has the highest quality instructional materials aligned to our nationally recognized standards. Florida has become a national leader in education under the vision and leadership. When it comes to education, other states continue to follow Florida's lead as we continue to reinforce parents' rights by focusing on providing their children with a world-class education without the fear of indoctrination or exposure to dangerous and divisive concepts in our classrooms. It seems that some publishers attempted to slap a coat of paint on an old house built on the foundation of Common Core and indoctrinating concepts like race essentialism, especially, bizarrely, for elementary school students. I'm grateful, this is Governor DeSantis, I'm grateful that Commissioner Corcoran and his team at the department have conducted such a thorough vetting of these textbooks to ensure they comply with the law.
So weird that they haven't told us what was wrong with these books. Specifically. Where's the examples?
I can't seem to find any of those, Marla.
Because they haven't released them?
I just don't know. I can't speak to anything that I don't have reference for.
Can I remind everyone that these books almost definitely came out of Texas? These books came out of Texas, and Florida went, that's offensive. That's fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, is it literally like, I saw someone make a TikTok to this effect. It's like, Jimmy has 4 oranges and gives Jesse 2. Well, that's socialism. Like what is the fucking, what's happening here? Is there a name that's like, they feel belongs to a person of color, like in one of these like word problems? Like what could these possibly be?
Most likely that. It's probably word problems. It's a part of Common Core, which uses different teaching methods other than just, simple math formula.
Mm-hmm.
NASW, no, I've not seen what's happened with Iowa. So I'll be, please let me know and we can pass that along in the closing minutes of the show. Oh no, Rosa, they didn't go to the effort to look anything up. So a little bit of medicine news for you. Because of the experience of Heather Peto, or Peto, it's P-E-T-O, I don't know for sure. She had been feeling exhausted and then began to experience some other signs and symptoms of something that was troubling, and come to find out, she had been exhibiting signs and symptoms of prostate cancer. Heather is a trans woman, and of course, as many of us do, we find sometimes healthcare is hard to access. Many doctors, well, some doctors and specialists are not aware of the specific symptoms that we might encounter, and it may be challenging for them to remember to screen for prostate cancer, because especially if we go to see a general practitioner who doesn't know how to handle transgender women, they may not assume that.
I mean, I was told my risks were way lower.
They are lower, but they are not removed. I mean, I know that I had to go to a urologist last year.
Mm-hmm.
And when the urologist was trying to get to know me and kind of, just do that friendly doctor patient rapport that they try to build,
Mm-hmm.
in speaking with this urologist, he had never dealt with a transgender woman before. My exam took 5 minutes. Our conversation about transgender medicine took 20 minutes.
Were you teaching him?
I want to be fair.
Uh-huh.
And I want to say that he was authentic in his effort to mansplain the transgender experience to me.
Help.
He was very clear that he knew transgender experience from a textbook position and that my knowledge was not adequate. And then he looked at my condition and basically said, I don't have a clue. Here, you can try this. I don't know what's going on, so I don't know how to help you.
Great.
Come to find out, I'm not the only transgender woman who had the experience
Wait a minute.
of what my problem was.
I'm curious if it's the same problem I had.
Let's see. Mine is similar to deep tissue pain upon engorgement of the penile tissues.
Okay, no, not the same thing.
Okay.
I was never taught something. I was never taught something until I had to ask other transgender women. And this is so embarrassing. About 6-7 months maybe after I started HRT, I was having issues of relieving myself, peeing, and then like 5 minutes later, like sneezing or laughing and having like a squirt. Because apparently the prostate atrophies and doesn't have the muscles to like get everything out quite as much as it used to.
Right.
No one taught me this. I had to find this out on my own. I was so afraid that there was something extremely wrong.
Right. The prostate does, if it is inflamed, it will compromise the urinary tract. But also, as we experience androgen blockers and estradiol, we experience prostate shrinkage, which can also, if it is in the right location, compromise the urinary tract.
Yep.
So, first of all, I want to say this. This is content that I need to cover over on Behind Open Doors, but this I think needs to be touched on right here. If you are having abnormal issues, speak to your doctor, get to a urologist or an internalist, and make sure that they are hearing you before you leave that office. If you need help with advocacy, if you are in a doctor's office and they are not listening to you, please reach out to me. I will speak with you over the phone as a patient advocate. There is no reason for you to have to experience anything that will worry you when it comes to transition. I am not a medical professional, but I have worked within patient advocacy for years. It is my time as an EMT and my time as a pastor. I worked to make sure that my people who were under my care were heard by the doctors. So if you are experiencing anything, you can contact me. I'll give you contact information. Just reach out to me either through email, through chat here in Twitch, or send me a private message. You can find me on TikTok. I mean, y'all, I'm a little bit everywhere. So reach out if you're having difficulties with having a doctor hear you. But here's the fun thing. Transgender women, we get to have both prostate and breast exams. So just keep that in mind. Yes. And as you cross the 50-year-old mark, those become mandatory. So, and in a little bit of lighter news, Tucker Carlson is in the news. Tucker Carlson has a new documentary that he is releasing called The End of Men.
Have you seen the opening to this thing or the trailer? What?
Yeah.
It's the most homoerotic thing I've ever seen.
Oh my God, yes. It is crazy how... Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. If you've not seen it, it's everywhere, so please go take a look. So Tucker Carlson is releasing this documentary, and it is supposed to chronicle the decline in testosterone levels of young men over the last 2 decades, which urologists have been examining and discussing and studying, and they attribute it to factors such as increases in average weight or dietary changes or lack of exercise or possible environmental toxins. But Tucker Carlson is here to save men and their dwindling testosterone levels. Tucker Carlson had his guest, Andrew McGovern, and they were talking about the drop in testosterone levels, which seemed to be causing them some great concern. And McGovern wanted Tucker to know that he had a proven method of helping with that. McGovern said, if you want to optimize and take your testosterone to another level, expose yourself to red light therapy. It's testicle tanning, but it's also full body red light therapy. This guy says this with almost a straight face through the entire freaking interview. He can't even do it with a straight face while he's being interviewed. But essentially, here's the thing. This guy is saying, all you got to do is have red light projected on your body, but make sure you get the testicles lit very well. And this will help raise testosterone. So my brain goes immediately to providing for the market, because we all know Tucker Carlson is going to impact a lot of men. And so there are going to be a lot of red light therapy testicle tanners coming out. which I think Tucker's Testicle Tanner needs to be the name. That needs to be the brand. Okay. The Tucker Tanner. But I'm from the South, y'all. And down south, we engineer things a little differently. Because you see, we don't like these big marketing firms and these big fancy people out there who make these machines that really, I can just put this together in my shop over the weekend and I can get the same results. This is what I have in my brain. You have poor redneck who's very concerned about his testosterone level and being able to make the little swimmers swim. So he goes out into his
make the world a little worse.
And he's looking around and he knows he has a red light. So he goes over and he gets that red light and he builds himself a red light Tucker Testicle Tanner. But because rednecks don't necessarily read all the words or understand what they may necessarily mean, he didn't use a red light. He used what he had, which was the infrared lamp that he kept his chicks warm with whenever the eggs hatched. So essentially, he's got a Tucker Testicle
tumor
infrared lamp,
which will give you a Tucker Testicle tumor.
Well, now you take an infrared lamp and you shine it directly on a part of the body that for most rednecks is never exposed to light in any way, shape, or form. Oh, there you go. Autumn, yes, the Tucker Testy Toaster.
Ooh.
I like that one. I like it. I think we got a marketable name going on here. So we have the Tucker Testy Toaster now focused on a part of the body that has never seen sunlight. Now, I don't know what happens to y'all, but I'm fair skinned and my legs rarely see sunlight. So when I go out in the sun and I'm out there for any extended period of time, I get the worst sunburns. So I want you to imagine this. Those poor individuals, who are worried about their testosterone, are going to go out and they are going to build their Tucker Testicle Toaster. But now they're going to have a bow-legged walk because they burn. And so now there's not only
a little better.
There's not only a market, but now there's actually a walk. And so we will be able to know who uses the Tucker Testicle Toasters. We'll be able to know them. Yes, there we go, Coco. And we will be able to call them the Tucker Roasted Testicle Toasters. Roasted Testicle Toasters. Now, yes, Marla, what would you like to address to the class?
Mr. Carlson and I do have one thing in common. We're both a Tucker.
Now, I do want to say this in all seriousness, and this is definitely why this is in the medicine category. You may be wondering why this was in the medicine category.
Don't.
One of the surest ways to reduce sperm count is to expose them to a high heat environment. So while they are increasing their testosterone, they are cooking their little swimmers. they are cooking their little so if you have loved ones who may be interested in becoming one of the Tucker roasted testicle toasters, please let them know that they're putting their sperm count at risk. Yes, L. I remember you. L-I. There's a whole bunch of L's and I's coming together. They're like, "Hey, girl, have I had my prostate exam yet?" And yes, I have. In fact, the urologist looked and said that everything is just amazing. That it has,
Amazing.
and actually, it is healthier than most cisgender men's. We do have one last news story, and this one is disturbing. So this also comes with a content warning. We definitely want to put this one up as a content warning.
Hey, Dad.
Yes?
Raven.
Hi, Raven. I can't see you. I'm actually on news, so I just want to say hi and thank you, Andrew, for, calling me out. No problem. Okay. Bye, Raven. That's not Hannity. Elijah Schaffer is the host of what is called the Slightly Offensive Show, which is on the Blaze TV channel, which was actually launched by Glenn Beck. Elijah Schaffer was mocking an unnamed person who was talking about a mass genocide of trans kids in Texas, not believing that anyone would want for trans kids to stop existing. So, co-host and fellow Texan Dave Landau joked, "Yeah, we all have to put a trans kid and drag them behind a truck." Schaffer said, "How many trans kids did you kill this week?" Landau, 6. They come with a toll tag. Schaffer responded, "You told me you did 3. I did 4. I was trying to beat you this week." Landau, "The Blaze ships us the better trans kids. You should really talk to them." Schaffer, "I feel cheated because I get like my Patriot Supply ads and stuff. Meanwhile, you get trans kids to genocide." Landau, "Trans Kids Supply. Yeah, it's a pretty good company." Landau, "They come in a tackle box. It's like a half dozen. And you kill them any way you want. It's pretty good. Only in Texas, though, apparently. I didn't know that because I've been killing them everywhere, so I better stop." Schaffer, "Me too. I started in California. Talk about the Trail of Tears. I did version 2. It's a new movie."
I know he also went on directly after that to say something along the lines of like 12 years a slave, more like 24 years a slave. Like it just like the racism just kept coming on top of the transphobia. Like it was.
Yeah.
Um,
If you all are interested in that, that is the show Slightly Offensive with host Elijah Schaffer. It is on the Blaze TV channel network. And if you would like to have the information about that station to potentially pass this information along to the FCC, I believe that could be arranged.
I found out about this article, or that this happened like within an hour or two of the article coming out, and I made about half a TikTok about it, and I went, TikTok is gonna remove my account for this.
Yeah.
Like, I can't post this.
No.
It's that egregious. It doesn't even matter that it's coming from somebody else.
No. So Brenna, no, that was a comedian doing an interaction
Shtick.
with their co-host on a conservative television station. Y'all, this is beyond inhumanity. And right, Blaze is a private television network. It is very right-wing. It was started by Glenn Beck when he was moving into his political phase. This is the kind of stuff that we are only going to see more of. It started with Chappelle. And if you don't think that Dave Chappelle's influence is part of this, you have a very narrow understanding of how media impacts the wider world. Once again, in closing, we can talk about this stuff on here. We can share with you all the information that we gain from what is happening within the world. In fact, we have a new source that we're going to be looking to draw from, but we can only do so much. We love every one of you who comes into view the content that we have. We appreciate everyone who is part of wanting to be connected to this community, and that goes out to my TikTok audience also, because they are an extended part of this. But we cannot make any reasonable impact if our message is not being shared. And as much as we love to believe that we make a difference, we need you to make a difference. We need you to be able to share the word, share the link for this program, share information about these news sources, these news stories. This is not the fun part of the show, but is the necessary part of the show. We need your support. We need your assistance. We have to get this news out into the world so that we can make an impact. So please share Transistance with people that you know, with community resources. Let them know that there is a place that we are informing the world of what's happening out there. Because we do live in a global community, and we are facing a global effort to narrow down our voice and remove us from the public sphere. It's going to take all of us, y'all. But I don't doubt that we can make a huge difference. Marla, do you have any closing comments?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well,
Thank you, furry community.
I want to conclude with the way that I normally sign off on my TikTok lives. And I want to emphasize the last part for us and our community. So I would like for you to go out there and be good to yourself because you deserve it. Go out and be good to others because you may be the only good that they will know. And let's go out there and do something small. And let's change the fucking world. From Marla, Emily, Kari, and I, we want to thank you for being a part of Transistance tonight. We will be back with you next week with more news and information and commentary, and probably Marla and I trying to prove one another wrong on how governors respond to legislation. Good night, everybody.
Good night.